Good morning to everyone, and welcome to the experience of Namaste here on this beautiful Friday morning where we join together to be truly helpful. Only that. We just shared that prayer a moment ago. I love that prayer because it so eloquently shares the single expression and opportunity that's before us. When we choose only to be truly helpful rather than mainly helpful or helpful most of the time. What does it mean to be truly helpful? It means that there is a bright reassociation that's taking place in our minds right now, a bright reassociation where we're beginning to finally open up our eyes and see what has always been there, but you can't see something that's always been there until you open up your eyes, instead of keeping them tightly closed. The split mind, or the perpetual universe, perceptual universe rather, is simply that, deciding, making the choice to keep your eyes totally, tightly closed because you're afraid of what you might see and what it might mean if you see that. If you see the shining bright reality of heaven everywhere you look, what would that mean? Of course, it would mean that you're home. Of course, it would mean that everything you've ever desired is right there, right now, the holy instant. And for some odd, strange reason, the perceptual or split mind has decided that that's something to fear. And it can only fear reality if it has turned around in such a way that unreality seems fearful. Begin to spin within your own mind, and instead of holding still, to look upon love itself and to see that this is the only thing that I want. Instead, the egoic mind spins around and around, wanting this, wanting that, deciding upon something else every moment to make the holy instant fearful, to make that holy instant of release when I open up my eyes and see what has always been true, to make that seem as if something I should avoid rather than the only thing that there is. But as I said, there is a bright new reassociation that is taking place in your mind. You wouldn't be here if there wasn't. You wouldn't allow this. Do you see that? You wouldn't even allow the possibility of this unless you were ready for it. And that's what it means to be truly helpful, to be ready for this single instant of the release of your perceptual split mind into that bright new reassociation that we call heaven, that we call now, the holy instant. That's all there is. And you're finally ready to see that. Once again, you wouldn't be here otherwise. You're finally ready to see that that's all that there is, and that when you keep your eyes closed, it's easy to project onto the back of your eyelids a whole nother world that seems very real indeed, because you have the power within your mind to create what seems to be, rather than allowing yourself to simply be present to what is always true. Not what seems to be true, but that which what always is true. Now, as we've said before, you're never going to get this into your intellectual mind, and your intellectual mind is spinning right now. What is he talking about? What does that mean? How do I reassociate this to experiences or to thoughts that I've had in the past so that I can somehow line them up in a linear manner and make sense of them? You don't need to do that. Thankfully, you don't need to do that. Luckily, all you need to do is to hold still and to feel this bright reassociation of your mind into the holy singular mind and presence of all that is, sometimes known as God. Once again, you're going to walk away from this, even if I stopped right now and 1 minute later, you'd be having no idea what we talked about. And that's good. That's the way it should be. You're not supposed to understand linearly what I'm talking about here, because it can't be. But what can happen is to dive into that bright reassociation in such a way that all of this separate universe, seemingly separate universe, begins to dissolve into that light. So let it dissolve. That's all we're saying. Just allow that to happen. Get out of the way. You standing in the way of that is the only problem you have. And the instant you lay down your sword and your armor and get out of the way is the instant this experience becomes the only thing you experience. That's all. It's so easy. It's so easy. You know, sometimes people say it's simple, but it's not easy. No, it's easy. It's easy and simple. You just have to admit that and realize that instead of making it seem harder than it is. Laying down the sword and accepting what has always been true is not hard. But yes, it's true. You have spent so many lifetimes building up these walls and making them so thick that it seems difficult for the light to break through. But what you've forgotten is that these so-called thick walls are made of nothing but thoughts. They're thought walls. And because they're thought walls, there's no real substance to them. They're just ideas. And as you begin one by one breaking down those ideas and realizing that there's no truth in them, they begin to dissolve and fade and just flash out on their own. That's what's happening to you now. You're beginning to realize that the defenses that you have built, thick defenses that you thought were stone, impenetrable, you're realizing now that they were nothing but ideas and thoughts based upon a past association that was never real. And that in this moment, you can let that go. The past is gone. It never was really, but you made it seem so. And in doing so, built these brick walls, and they are falling apart like the walls of Jericho. So that's why we're here, just to let that happen, to join in that singular experience, because as we join together and say yes to that, it amplifies, it increases in its momentum. And we realize, as we've said many, many times before, you never really left heaven. Just open your eyes and see that. So let me read our, I guess we'll say our little sentence or lesson or whatever you want to call it for the day. And we'll see where this takes us. Here we go. This is going to talk more directly to that new bright reassociation. Why would you hold on to a grievance when you're beginning to experience a bright new reassociation that resolutely demonstrates the unreality of the world that you thought you saw? Why? Listen to that one more time. Why would you hold on to a grievance? A grievance being my need to be right, which means that you need to be wrong. Literally, you need to be wrong in order for me to be right, and that puts us both in hell. Why would you do that now when you've come to this point? Why would you hold on to a grievance when you're beginning to experience a bright new reassociation that resolutely demonstrates the unreality of the world you thought you saw? Now that you're beginning to experience this, holding on to those grievances is going to become so painful because you know what you're giving up. You know, as you begin to experience this bright new reassociation within your mind, that to give that up at this point can't happen. You can't do it. So every time you have a grievance, it's going to hit right against that bright association, and you're going to make a choice. Do I want to go back into that shadow world where it's going to be even more painful now because now I know I can't hide. I can't just pretend like I don't know. You know now, as your mind begins to brighten and these concepts begin to widen, you know that you can't do that without causing yourself even greater pain. And why would you? Why would you do that to yourself? Stay here. Keep letting it get brighter. Keep coming here. That's what this is for. This joining, whether you're here at Namaste or everywhere that's Namaste. The reason we're doing this is so that you can continue this bright reassociation and have the resolute experience of the unreality of this world. When something is resolute, there's no arguing with it. And you're to the point now where you can't argue with what you're feeling and seeing. Let me go a little further. All I'm telling you is to give up your self-association. Give yourself away. Don't possess. Don't hold on. Then you'll wake up and be in heaven. I can't make it any more simple than that. Once again, simple and easy. Give yourself away. Don't hold on. Don't possess. Just open. I can't make it any more simple than that. Yes, we're breaking this down to its most simple component. Give yourself away. And you'll realize that the self you're giving away never really was anyway. And hiding behind that, or pushed behind that rather, because you're the one who pushed it there. You asserted this costume, this identity that never was, in order to hide from the reality that you've always been. And now that begins to step forward. That bright light association that you are steps forward. And you say, that's what I want. Now that I remember that, that's the only thing that means anything to me. I will set. It's like how did Jesus talk about that? He talked about this great gem buried in a field. And you go, and because you know that it's buried in that field, you sell everything you have so that you can buy that field. Because you know what's there. And now you know what's here. As this bright reassociation of your mind begins to build momentum, you begin to give everything so that you can buy that field where you know this experience lies. What else is there to do? I'm serious. What else is there to do? This world isn't real. You, as you have defined yourself, isn't real. You're beginning to feel that. But all the while, reality stood waiting for you to open your eyes and see. All the while, heaven hovered in the air. That's where you find yourself. This holy instant of release. Take a deep breath. Let me say those words again. This holy instant of release. Just touch that. Right now, in this instant, you are undergoing an experiential reassociation, a bright light association that knows nothing of this world, but knows everything of the real world where you are waiting for you. Don't hesitate. So now I'm going to turn it over to Victoria, our dear sister Vicky, and let her bring it even higher, which she does every day. Are you out there, Vicky? Oh, maybe not. She usually texts me if she can't make it, and I didn't check my phone. How about Teddy? Are you out there? Or they must be together. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what Vicky would say. All Vicky's going to say is yes. And then she's going to add her own beautiful little practical twist to it. But it always comes down to yes, right now, this moment. Why wait? This is so vibrant. The frequency is so high. And you're finally acclimated to it. It took you a little while to get acclimated to this height. It's as if you've been climbing the highest mountain of in the world. And yes, it takes you a little while to acclimate to the fact that the oxygen is different here. If you were climbing Mount Everest, for example, and you weren't prepared with oxygen and all these things, you wouldn't be able to string your thoughts together in quite the same way. You would be breathing different. You'd be feeling different because everything is different at this height. And that's true here as well. Everything is different at this height. And that's okay. Let it happen. Don't worry if it seems like your thoughts aren't as coherent as they were, as if things are dissolving all around you, because they are. This is part of the awakening. Just let them dissolve. You don't need to do anything to stop it. Trying to stop it or pull them back together is trying to reassociate back into the world that you don't need anymore. Just allow the silence to take you and the expansion to take place. And you will reacclimate, I promise you. It won't take long for you to come to the point where you say, this is it. I'm not going back down. I'm not climbing back down that mountain. Why would I? I'm ready to fly. And you are ready to fly. All right. So then let's head over to Namaste. I saw you guys here a second ago. There we are. Go ahead and turn your camera on. So you can turn your camera on at the beginning. That way I can easily spotlight. There we go. Good morning, everyone. How are you, family? Good to see all of you. Christina, anything you'd like to share?
Good morning, everyone. I love it when the camera turns on and I can see my family behind me. I like how you shared, Jimmy, at this height. And at this height, for lack of better words, there is no you and there is no me. There is only we.
And the roosters. Don't forget those.
They are also we. There is only we. And when there is no more you and me, there is no need to attain God, no need for anything. That is all. Thank you.
You know, if I were to bring this into, I don't want to say a religious context, but something that would be easily seen from that perspective, I would say there is no me, there is no you, there is no me, there is only thee. Ultimately, the dissolving of this is into thee, into the divine, into wholeness. Not a God that's outside of me, because that's just as unreal as me. But when I say the beloved, when I say only thee, what I'm doing is surrendering that self-identity that you described. I'm just letting it go because I see the unreality of it now. Once again, we're at the tip of the highest mountain. You can't go any higher than this in this world. Do you see that? You can't go any higher than this. And you can't hold your thoughts together here. They are going to dissolve. They are going to become more and more spacious. So let it happen. Let that bright new reassociation occur on its own. You don't need to do anything. When you climb to the top of Mount Everest, you don't need to do anything. The height and the air is going to do it for you. Just hold it still and let that light reassociation take place.